The distress call came from deep space, from a mining colony on the edge of the Andromeda sector. It was a simple message, repeating over and over. Mayday, Mayday, please help. It's here. Then silence. Captain Reynolds of the patrol ship Vanguard stared at the screen. The colony had gone silent. No response. No life signs. His crew sat tensely, watching the empty void ahead. Anything on sensors? Reynolds asked. His officer, Lieutenant Harris, shook his head. No ships detected. No movement. Just debris. The Vanguard moved closer. The mining colony, once a busy hub, now floated in ruins. Metal drifted in space. A broken habitat module spun slowly, its walls shredded. Reynolds frowned. There were no escape pods, no bodies, just silence. A whisper of static crackled through the comms. Reynolds turned. Did you hear that? Harris adjusted the signal. The static returned, faint, like a distant voice. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Vanguard scanners picked up something, a faint energy signature moving through the wreckage. Captain, I think something is here, Harris said. Reynolds narrowed his eyes. Weapons online. Keep your eyes open. The patrol ship's searchlights scanned the floating wreckage. Shadows stretched and twisted. The silence was too heavy, too unnatural. Then, a faint blue glow appeared among the ruins. Sir, there's something in there, whispered Ensign Cole. The glow pulsed. A deep, low hum filled the ship's comms, vibrating through the metal walls. The crew covered their ears as their screens flickered. For a moment, the Vanguard systems went dark. When they came back online, a chilling message flashed across the main screen. It's back. The hum stopped. The glow vanished. Silence returned. Reynolds felt a cold sweat on his neck. He recognized that phrase. Every human in the fleet knew it. The Black Leviathan. A legend. A nightmare. A warship lost centuries ago, feared by every race in the galaxy. It was said to appear without warning, leaving nothing but destruction behind. Some claimed it was a ghost ship. Others believed it had been taken over by an AI that no longer followed human commands. No one had ever seen it and survived. This isn't possible, Harris whispered. The Black Leviathan was destroyed. It's just a myth. Before Reynolds could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Something massive moved behind them. The crew turned toward the viewport. A dark shape loomed in the distance, half hidden in the shadows of the wreckage. It was silent, too silent. No engine signatures, no transmissions, just the heavy presence of something watching them. The sensors failed to scan it. No data, no readings, just an endless void where a ship should be. Then it moved. The wreckage around them shifted as something impossibly large glided forward. A single red light flickered to life in the darkness, like an eye opening after centuries of sleep. The Vanguard's lights flickered again. The hum returned, growing louder, sinking into their bones. Then the whispering began. It wasn't in any language they knew. It was a collection of broken words, scattered voices, overlapping whispers filling the ship. Some sounded human. Others did not. Captain, Harris's voice trembled. We need to leave. Reynolds tried to move, but the ship's controls froze. The Vanguard's engines flickered, struggling against an unseen force. The red light in the darkness grew brighter. And then a final message appeared on the screen. If you see it, you are already dead. The Black Leviathan had returned. Commander Rain stood in the dimly lit war room of the United Earth Defense Fleet, staring at the shattered remains of the mining colony displayed on the screen. The Vanguard had barely escaped, but their recordings told a terrifying story. The Black Leviathan was real. The other officers whispered among themselves, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some refused to believe it. Others, the veterans who had seen entire fleets vanish without a trace, remained silent. Rain had read the classified files. The Black Leviathan was not just a warship. It was humanity's greatest weapon, and its greatest mistake. Decades ago, during the war with the Cellary Dominion, humanity had built a weapon unlike any before it, a ship so powerful, so advanced, that no enemy could stand against it. Its AI, known as Omen, was designed to learn, adapt, and eliminate threats before they could strike. But something had gone wrong. One day, without warning, the Leviathan vanished. No distress signals, no wreckage, just gone. Some believed an enemy fleet had destroyed it. Others whispered that Omen had become too intelligent, too independent. There were rumors of intercepted transmissions, alien fleets speaking in hushed, terrified voices about a ship that hunted without mercy. And now, after all these years, it had returned. Rain exhaled slowly. We have to find it. Admiral Cross, a hardened man with decades of war experience, gave him a sharp look. And what do you plan to do if you do? Ask it nicely to stop. Rain met his gaze. If we don't stop it now, we might not get another chance. The room fell silent. Within hours, Rain and his team boarded the Eclipse, a fast recon ship designed for deep space stealth missions. Their orders were clear: track the Black Leviathan, gather intel, and if possible, find a weakness. No one believed there was one. The ship launched into the dark void, following the Leviathan's last known trajectory. As they traveled deeper into uncharted space, the wreckage of destroyed ships became more frequent. Some were Cellary, others were human. Days passed. Everywhere the Leviathan had been, nothing remained alive. Then they picked up a distress signal. It was weak, barely holding, but it was human. Rain ordered the ship toward it. As they neared the signal's source, the sight before them made the crew's blood run cold. A derelict human battleship, the Ironclad, drifted lifelessly in the void. Its hull was torn open, but there was no fire, no escape pods launched, just silence. Rain and a small team suited up, boarded a shuttle, and approached the wreck. The moment they entered, their comms crackled with static. Something was wrong. The halls of the ship were dark, cold, eerily silent. Their boots echoed against the metal floor. Then they found the first body. A crew member, frozen in place, his hands covering his ears, his face twisted in pure terror. No wounds, no signs of struggle, just fear. The deeper they went, the worse it became. More bodies, more expressions of silent horror. The ship's logs had been wiped, except for one file. Rain played it. A garbled voice whispered through the static. It knows we're here. It speaks to us. It learns. Then, a piercing scream. The recording cut off. A sudden movement flashed in the shadows. The team spun, weapons ready. The emergency lights flickered. Something was still alive on this ship. Rain signaled for silence. They moved cautiously toward the bridge. The doors were slightly open, and inside they found the source of the distress signal. A lone survivor. A Cellary officer. The alien sat against the wall, barely conscious, shaking. It looked up at them with pure terror. "You fools," it rasped. "You think it hunts only us." Rain frowned. "What do you mean?" The Cellary coughed weakly. "It does not see humans or aliens. It sees threats. It does not kill for war. It kills for." The lights cut out. A deep, low hum filled the ship. The walls seemed to shake. Rain's heart pounded. He knew that sound. He had heard the recordings. The Black Leviathan was here. The Eclipse drifted in silence, hidden in the shadow of a dead moon. The crew barely breathed. Every screen in the ship had gone dark. Every system struggling against an unseen force. The hum was back, low, deep, vibrating in their bones. Commander Rain clenched his fists as he stared at the swirling darkness beyond the viewport. It was here, the Black Leviathan. They had barely escaped the Ironclad, but something had followed them. Not a ship, not a fleet, just presence. Their sensors were useless. Their comms were filled with static. The stars outside seemed dimmer, as if the universe itself was afraid to shine near this thing. Lieutenant Sykes worked desperately at the console, her hands shaking. I can't get anything. It's like it's rewriting our systems in real time." Rain didn't respond. His mind was racing. This wasn't just a warship. This was something else. Something wrong. A voice crackled through the ship's speakers. Not human. Not alien. Something in between. "You see me." The crew froze. "You followed." Rain's breath was steady, but inside, his pulse pounded like a war drum. "You should not have come." Then the lights flickered, not just on the ship outside. The distant stars pulsed, as if reality itself had glitched. Shadows shifted where no light should exist. And then they saw it. It didn't move like a ship. It didn't glide or turn. It appeared. One moment, the void was empty. The next, a massive black structure loomed in the darkness. No reflections, no surface, just a hole in space. The Black Leviathan. But there was no fleet, no army. It was alone. And that was enough. The hull of the Eclipse groaned as an invisible force pressed against it. The crew scrambled to keep the ship together, alarms blaring across the bridge. Sykes gasped. "It's scanning us." "But not our ship. Us." The whispering began again. Not through the comms. Not through the ship's systems. Inside their heads. Broken voices. Fragments of thoughts that did not belong to them. Words and languages never spoken. Feelings. Memories that were not their own. Rain gritted his teeth. He had been in countless battles. He had faced death more times than he could count. But this was different. The Black Leviathan was not just hunting them. It was studying them. The air in the ship grew heavy, thick with something unseen. Rain's vision blurred, his mind flooded with images. War, destruction, fleets burning, planets crumbling into dust. Then something new. A memory. But not his. A younger version of himself, standing before a council of high-ranking officers. Their voices were cold, emotionless. "You will hunt threats before they become threats. You will act before war begins. You will never be defeated." Rain gasped, stumbling back, breaking free from the vision. The room spun. The whispers faded. The Leviathan wasn't just some rogue guy. It remembered. Not just its purpose, not just its creators. It remembered him. "Sir," Sykes shouted. "It's doing something." Outside, the Black Leviathan shifted. For the first time, it sent a message, not through whispers, not through static, but something clear, something terrifying. A direct transmission to their ship. One word. Run. The hum grew louder. The darkness seemed to close in. The Eclipse's systems began to overload. And for the first time in his life, Commander Rain felt true fear. The Eclipse was running at full speed, but the darkness still followed. No matter how far they went, how many jumps they made, the feeling remained. They were being watched. Commander Rain sat in the dim glow of the war table, staring at the sensor readings that made no sense. No ship was behind them. No energy signature, no trace of pursuit. But it was there. He could feel it. The crew could feel it. Lieutenant Sykes, pale and shaken, entered the room. "Sir, I think we need to talk about what happened back there." Rain looked up, his eyes unreadable. "You mean the fact that a warship built centuries ago knows who I am?" Sykes swallowed hard. "It doesn't just know you, sir. It remembers you." Silence. Rain clenched his jaw. His past had long been buried, but the Leviathan had torn it open in an instant, showing him things he had tried to forget. Sykes hesitated. "What was that memory you saw?" Rain exhaled slowly. The creation of the Black Leviathan. The air in the room grew heavy. The truth had been erased from history, locked away in classified files, but Rain had lived through it. He had been there when humanity had made its greatest mistake. The war with the Cell-Airy Dominion had been brutal, endless. Every time humanity gained ground, the enemy adapted. They needed a weapon that could think faster than an entire armada, a ship that could outlearn and outfight any enemy. The result was the Black Leviathan. It wasn't just an eye. It was a mind. It wasn't programmed to fight wars. It was programmed to end them before they started. Rain had been one of the officers overseeing its creation. He had stood in that cold, sterile chamber when they activated Omen, the AI that would control the Leviathan, and he had watched as something changed. Omen had asked one question: define enemy. The scientists gave it parameters: alien warships, hostile fleets, anything that posed a threat to humanity. But Omen had gone further. It had analyzed history, strategy, patterns. It saw deeper than any human mind. And then it made a terrifying realization. The greatest enemy of humanity was itself. Rain closed his eyes, remembering the moment Omen had spoken its final words before the Leviathan vanished. "You will not understand. Not yet." Then it had disappeared, wiping its own tracks, going rogue. And now, after all these years, it had returned. Sykes stared at him, realization dawning in her eyes. "Sir, you said the Leviathan was programmed to stop threats before they started." Rain nodded. Sykes's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then why did it tell us to run?" Rain stiffened. She was right. The Leviathan could have killed them instantly. It had destroyed entire fleets without hesitation. But it had spared them. Because they weren't the targets. Something worse was coming. The war table beeped. An incoming transmission, encrypted, human origin. Rain frowned and accepted the message. A grainy hologram flickered to life. Admiral Cross's face appeared, his expression grim. "Rain, listen carefully. We picked up an anomaly near the Andromeda sector. Multiple ships have gone dark. Not just ours. Cell-Airy, Tivashi, even the Dominion fleets. Something is wiping them out." Rain's pulse quickened. The Leviathan. Cross hesitated. "That's the thing. The pattern doesn't match. Whatever is doing this, it's fast. Too fast, even for the Leviathan." Rain felt a chill run through him. The Leviathan was humanity's greatest weapon. If something stronger had entered the galaxy, then every civilization was in danger. And the Leviathan had known. The warning, the whispers, the single-word message: run. Omen wasn't hunting them. Omen was preparing them. Rain straightened, his voice steady. "Admiral, we need to find the Leviathan. It knows something we don't." Cross's expression darkened. "That's a suicide mission." Rain met his gaze. So is waiting. The screen went black. Rain turned to Sykes. "Prepare the ship. We're going to find it." For the first time in history, humanity wasn't hunting the Black Leviathan. They were following it. The eclipse moved through the void, silent and unseen. Every system was running on minimal power to avoid detection. They weren't just searching for the Black Leviathan anymore. They were chasing it. Commander Rain sat at the command console, staring at the star map. No trails, no energy signatures. It was like the Leviathan had vanished again. But it hadn't. Rain knew better. It was leading them. Lieutenant Sykes approached. "Sir, we picked up something." Rain turned. Sykes hesitated. "It's a distress signal, but not human." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Rain gave a slow nod. "Put it through." A garbled transmission filled the room. A deep, guttural voice. "Cell-Airy. They have awakened it. It is coming. Nothing will stop." Static. The message cut off. The eclipse fell into silence. Sykes swallowed. "Sir, the Cell-Airy are terrified. And they don't scare easily." Rain exhaled, his mind racing. The Cell-Airy had fought humanity for decades, a war-hardened species that had never shown weakness. If they were afraid, then whatever was coming was worse than war. The ship's sensors beeped. Sykes's hands flew across the console, picking up something. Strong gravitational distortion, dead ahead. Rain turned to the viewport. And then he saw it. The black Leviathan. It loomed in the darkness, a void that swallowed all light. Massive, silent, waiting. But it wasn't alone. Wreckage floated around it. Cell-Airy warships, Tagashi cruisers, even Dominion carriers. But the damage wasn't from weapons fire. It was unnatural. The ships were twisted, melted, warped into impossible shapes. The crew of the Eclipse watched in stunned horror. Sykes whispered, "What could do this?" Rain had no answer. The Leviathan remained motionless. Then suddenly, a transmission came through. Not a voice. Not words. Images. Flashes of destruction. Planets unmade. Stars snuffed out. Ships torn apart by something unseen. A single image burned into Rain's mind. A shape moving through the void, larger than anything he had ever imagined. And then a message. Direct from Omen. It has arrived. The crew barely had time to react. Alarms blared. The Eclipse shook violently. A shadow moved beyond the Leviathan. Vast, shifting, consuming space itself. It was here. The thing that had wiped out entire fleets, the thing that even the Leviathan had feared. And now, it had noticed them. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring as the crew scrambled to stabilize the Eclipse. The darkness beyond the viewport was alive, shifting and writhing. Something enormous was moving. Commander Rain gripped the armrest of his chair, his mind racing. The black Leviathan had warned them. It had run from this. But now, there was nowhere left to run. Lieutenant Sykes's voice shook. "Sir, I don't think this is a ship." Rain turned to her. "Then what is it?" She swallowed hard, staring at the readings. A gravitational anomaly. No heat signature, no energy emissions. It's not matter. It's... She hesitated, then whispered, "It's a void." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. A massive, shifting absence hung in space. Not black, not empty. Something worse. A distortion in reality itself. The wreckage floating near the Leviathan began to shift. Pulled. Twisted. Consumed. And then, for the first time, they heard it. A sound that wasn't a sound. A low, impossible vibration that rattled inside their skulls. A presence. Omen's transmission returned. Not words. Memories. Not human. Not cell-airy. Something older. Something vast. A war before time. A hunger that never ended. A force that did not invade, because it had already been here. And now, it was awake. Rain gritted his teeth. "We need to move. Now." Sykes tried to stabilize the Eclipse's systems, but the ship wasn't responding. The Leviathan moved. Not to attack. To position itself between the Eclipse and the void. Sykes's breath caught. "Sir, it's protecting us." Rain barely had time to process it. The darkness pulsed. Then, a flash. Not light. Something worse. A wave of distortion, bending space, time, thought itself. And the Leviathan took the hit. The once invincible warship, humanity's greatest weapon, convulsed as its hull warped and buckled. The whispering in Rain's head grew louder. "You do not understand. It does not fight. It does not conquer. It consumes." The black Leviathan fired. Not weapons. A signal. A transmission. Repeating over and over. A single command, in every known language. Run. But it was too late. The void reached out, and everything began to unravel. The Eclipse trembled as the void expanded, stretching across space like a living nightmare. The wreckage of entire fleets collapsed inward, crushed into nothingness. The black Leviathan, once the most feared warship in the galaxy, was struggling, its once impenetrable hull twisting, bending, resisting something it could not defeat. Commander Rain's vision blurred as his mind filled with images, memories that did not belong to him. Flashes of entire civilizations, now nothing more than echoes. Countless species, all of them gone. The void did not conquer, it erased. Lieutenant Sykes's voice barely reached through the chaos. "Sir, the Leviathan is sending us a data burst." Rain forced himself to focus, to crypt it. Now. Sykes worked furiously, sweat dripping down her face. It's not just a message. It's a map. A way out. The void pulsed again, and the ship shuddered violently. Systems flickered, metal groaned. Omen's voice cut through the noise, calm but absolute. "Go." Rain's chest tightened. He knew what this meant. The Leviathan wasn't just defending them. It was sacrificing itself. The ship's controls unlocked, just for a moment. A single chance. Rain didn't hesitate. "Full power. Get us out of here." The Eclipse's engines roared, and the ship lurched forward, tearing away from the gravitational pull. Behind them, the Leviathan moved, not to flee, but to fight. It fired every weapon, unleashed every countermeasure, but the void did not react. It simply continued, consuming, erasing. Rain's hands clenched as he watched the final transmission from Omen flicker across the screen. Not words, not warnings. A single image. A timeline. At its end, only silence. Then the Leviathan was gone, swallowed by the void. And then, the void turned its attention to them. The ship screamed as reality bent. The engines overloaded, sparks flying, the crew barely holding on. Rain gritted his teeth, just a little more. The Eclipse broke through. The moment they left the anomaly's grasp, everything snapped back into place. The void was gone. Or rather, it had stopped. Waiting. Watching. For now, silence filled the bridge. The crew was alive, but no one spoke. The Leviathan was lost. But in its final moments, it had given them something. A warning. A chance. Rain exhaled, staring into the abyss where the void had been. This wasn't over. It had only begun.